Welcome to the first episode of Back in Time videos, and today we bring you the American Revolution Chapter 6 from The American Journey by Glenn.
During this Revolutionary War, there were two main parties fighting. There were the colonists and there were the British.
Let's take a closer look at the colonist side. There were two types of colonists, the Patriots and the Loyalists. Let's take a closer look at the Patriots. Not the best football team in the world, but the Patriots.
We're talking about the Patriots from the Revolutionary War, not the Giants here.
Yeah.
Okay. So, the Patriots were in favor of independence. They had no representation in the government, and they had one of the hardest jobs because they had to fight against the Loyalists, the Hessians, and the British.
The second party was the Loyalists. The Loyalists were loyal to the king, hence the name Loyalists, and they were living within the Patriots' homes. So they had the tough job of having to deal with the Patriots because they were living in the colonies, and some Patriots killed, tarred and feathered, or brutally hurt the Loyalists.
This caused a civil war within the colonies, and not just against the British. So many people thought that they should join together in order to conquer the British. There was also another party. These were people who didn't want to get caught up in the war, and they were called neutralists. They were neutral, that's why it says in their name, neutralists. Many neutralists were pressured into becoming a patriot or loyalist, and they had a very tough job because they didn't want to pick a certain side. So sometimes, as an effect of that, they would get killed, murdered, tarred and feathered, or put in jail. There was a poster made out and said, "Join or die." This poster said that all the colonists had to join together, that's why it has the join on it, join, or they were going to die. Because there's two people fighting against each other, and then there's an outside force coming in to also help. You're obviously going to die unless you join forces, and then you can defeat the British.
So basically, the join or die symbol was a snake, cut up into multiple pieces. The sections represented the colonies, so South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, New Jersey, and so on and so forth. So when a snake is cut up into multiple sections, the snake is obviously not living. So this represented the colonies separated from each other, own governments, and doing their own thing. But when they're put together and they are ruling together, they will thrive and they will beat the British.
Due to the fact that the colonists were divided, not many people were in the Continental Army. The Continental Army was the army that fought for independence in the colonies. So, as an effect of this, George Washington took many African Americans and put them in the army. He just took them out of their homes, out of slavery, and he put them in the army. They had no consent, and so therefore they did not fight as well as the other paid soldiers. The British thought that this was a good idea, and they hired the Hessians, which are the Germans. And these are their flags. The one on the left is the Germans, and the one on the right is the Africans.
The colonies set up stations in various colonies. These stations were made to recruit soldiers in the army. These stations were very helpful and got many young, well-fighting, healthy soldiers. So basically these stations were just little recruitment stands in various locations in the colonies, maybe at the churches, because a lot of people went to church, to recruit 18 or older soldiers. You had to be 18 or older because the younger ones had to work around the farm and they had to do chores for their father. Whereas you're 18, you usually go on your own and you get married and stuff like that.
But these recruitment stands didn't do everything. The Continental Army still needed soldiers, and they needed them so badly that they recruited, wait for it, women. The women were spies, soldiers, nurses, and equipment managers. I don't mean like carrying your football helmet or your baseball bat. They would carry the guns and the gunpowder and the grenades and all that. The picture of the woman on the bottom is actually a very interesting female in the war. Her name is Deborah Sampson, and before the Continental Army took a woman, she disguised herself as a man and got into the army. And then after they accepted women, then she showed herself, showed who she really was, and everyone was so surprised how she's been in the army for quite some time, and they never even realized that she was a woman. And now I'm going to hand the floor over to my partner, Podrick.
Alright, so now we're going to talk about battles. Now, the main first battle that was known as the shot heard around the world was Lexington and Concord. So the picture to the right is Concord. Now, you can see the Red soldiers are literally the most organized thing we've ever seen. The colonists are just shambungled everywhere. They're not really, organized. They're just shooting to save their lives. Now, Concord was the first battle, and Concord was about, I'd say, not nearly 100, but probably around 50 or so. And so the colonists just stood there, they were waiting, and so basically the British came in and General William Howe was on his horse, and he demanded and requested that the colonists lay down their arms in the name of England. Now, the colonists obviously didn't do it, and they refused. They refused by all means, and they started fighting. Now, no one actually knows who shot first, and it's always that. It always has to end on, a cliffhanger. No one knows who shot. So they heard a shot, and the British thought, oh, God, they fired at us, and the colonists thought, they shot at us. Now, a man by the name of...
John Parker it is, right?
Yes, John Parker. Now, he was in charge of the small little militia force, and they did not stand very well at all. Now, Concord was the first battle. Now, Lexington was kind of more of a hit and run, pretty much. The colonists just stood at a bridge, and they just kind of shot at them and held them for, surprisingly, a long time. Now, you all heard of pretty much the Battle of Bunker Hill. It was pretty much the same thing. They held the ground, and the British had to attack 4 times to try and knock the colonists off, but they didn't, and the British had to retreat. Now we're going to talk about the Battle of Bunker Hill.
Okay, so on June 17th, 1775, the colonists and the British were getting ready for a battle. That night, the British went to sleep. The colonists, however, did not. They stayed up all night, making a 6-foot-tall mud, dirt, stone wall. When General Howe woke up, he saw this wall. He was furious. He said, the rebels did more work in one night than my army could do in a month. And now I'm going to give it over to my friend, Podrick.
Okay, so the British lined up again, their whole usual lining up thing, and then lined up and charged up that hill. The colonists were just prepared. They knew exactly what was going to happen. So the British charged up there, and they got shot down. They charged up there again, and they got shot down again by the colonists. But however, they charged up there again. They got shot down.
And then, on this last try, something extraordinary happened.
They got shot down.
No, That's not what happened. Their ammunition ran out. The colonists ran out of ammunition. So, the British the British were able to get through the wall that the colonists made, and they just destroyed them. They annihilated them. They kicked their butts.
I am face-palming so hard. How do you... Okay, you're having the best battle of your life, and you run out of ammunition day after retreat, and you lose.
That's the colonists for you.
Oh,
okay, but this also has another name. It has the Battle of Bunker Hill and the Battle of Breed's Hill. They were like the same battle. This battle lasted about a week, but they was cut up into 2. The first one, Battle of Breed's Hill, is when the colonists were winning. Then, when the wall falls, they called it the Battle of Bunker Hill, and that's when the British took it from there because they lost their ammunition. And this is the end of Section 1, Chapter 6. If you want to continue watching, you can just stay on the video. If you're done and you just want to learn about Section 1, just click out. This is Back in Time Videos. Thank you.
Alright, welcome back. If you're still watching this video, you are now going on to Section 2, The War Continues.
This section is, the beginning of the section is about the allies that are made, and the rest of the section is pretty much the battles that go on throughout the duration of the remainder of the war. So now we're going to pass the floor over to Podrick, who's going to talk about 2 very important allies who, if they didn't help this side, I don't think the outcome would have been the same.
All right, now we're going to talk about France and Spain. Now, France, if you look to your right, and that's the flag, if you look to your left is Spain. Now, France had a major impact in the war. France, supplied the American troops with equipment and soldiers, actually, money and help for everything possible. France sent money for soldiers and weapons. They also sent weapons, and they helped everything to possibly win the war. Now, the reason for France helping America was because in the French and Indian War, obviously the British declared war on France. And they're not only fighting in the colonies, but they were fighting in Europe in the 7 Years' War. So France decided to help the colonists who were starting a revolution with the British. Now we're moving on to Spain. Spain's governor, Bernardo de Galvez, in 1779 declared war on Britain. He sent soldiers and troops to America just like France, and they sent money and equipment and everything. Now, Galvez raised an own army and forced British troops from Baton Rouge, which is in Louisiana, all the way up to forts in South Carolina. Now, Galvez also got a navy, and he moved up and down the Mississippi River, taking out forts from the British. Now we're going to move on to the winter at Valley Forge. Now, Washington moved to Philadelphia to set up a camp at Valley Forge. Now, Valley Forge was the hardest and just brutal staying ever. It was so bad. It was awful. Nearly almost half of Washington's force died from attrition. Now, Howe also moved to Philadelphia, but he was in the town's houses. So he was comfortable. He had his own quarters and everything. Whereas George Washington physically cut down trees to make lodges and huts at Valley Forge. Now, George Washington moves his troops there because his spies told him about Howe and 2 other generals planning on a preemptive strike against Washington's forces. Now, no one knew about this attack. So, in the 7 Years' War, as I was talking about before, when France helped, Prussia, which is near Russia, but it's not Russia, it's Prussia, if you can get that, they were at war with England in the 7 Years' War, and they fought brutally. So, Prussia's general...
Is Prussia made up of ponies in Russia?
No, it's not. Now, before I was really interrupted, Prussia's army officer, Frederick von Steuben, and... Shut up! And Marquis de Lafayette, and Juan de Morales...
Juan!
Oh my god. Okay, arrived at Valley Forge. Frederick von Steuben was the Prussian officer, Marquis de Lafayette was a French noble, and Juan de Morales was Spanish. Okay, so Frederick von Steuben and Marquis de Lafayette were both officers in their armies, France and Prussia. Now, they both came to Valley Forge to train Washington's troops. Now, Washington's over 2/3 of his force was actually militia, so they were not trained. So Frederick von Steuben spoke little English, but he helped the drills and he helped the training, and he wrote a lot about what was going on. Now, Marquis de Lafayette, he supported enthusiastically about the Declaration of Independence. And he arrived in Philadelphia with George Washington to aid Washington and to eventually become an officer in the Battle of
Wait for it.
Yorktown.
A Battle of Yorktown. Boom! Ba-da-boom! Boom! 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 Ba-da-boom! Oh.
Alright, as I was continuing, so he helped in the Battle of Yorktown. He sent so many soldiers, and he led the army of almost 1/3 of Washington's soldiers at the Battle of Yorktown. Now, This is very important because Frederick von Steuben was literally the highest officer you could ever find. And he was Prussian, so he's seen so many battles against Russia, against Austria, against England. He's seen so many battles, so he knows exactly what to do. Okay, so continuing off of that, many Pennsylvanian regiments were foreign-born. So that means so many foreigners came because they loved the idea of independence. Irish people came. Stop it for the Irish. Prussians.
America.
Yeah, no.
America.
Where would you be now? Without the Irish people.
We'd be still here. The Irish weren't allies.
Yeah, they were in the army, though.
But the allies were the French and the Spanish.
So many foreign people, Spanish, French, Irish.
Americans.
Oh, my God. Irish, Wales, people from Scotland, people from Austria. Literally, half of Washington's army was actually foreign-born. Now we're going to move on to money problems in the colonies with my friend Tyler.
Ow. So, there's lots of money problems in the colonies at this time. This all started because the Continental Congress had no power to raise money through taxes, and they didn't have enough money. So, to pay for the war, Congress printed hundreds of millions.
Neymar! Oh my God.
Why are you saying goal?
Brazil scored.
Again?
Yeah.
Yeah, Brazil! Whoa!
Sorry, we're watching soccer.
Okay, back to the colonies, back in time. To pay for the war, Congress printed hundreds of millions of dollars.
Sorry. It was no goal.
This led to something called inflation. Inflation is when there's too much money being out in circulation, which means that everyone has so much money that it becomes worthless. It's like something such as paper, which would be $1, let's say, could now be charged for $200 because everyone had that much money. So it was the equivalent of that, and it just made no sense. Inflation is a bad thing. And as a result of this, the Congress stopped issuing the paper money because no one would use it, so they had to go back to the old-fashioned coins. This is the end of Section 2. If you want to continue watching the video to learn more about Sections 3 and 4, then stay in the video. If you just want to learn about Section 2, you can click out. This is Back in Time Videos thanking you.
Thanks for watching, guys.
Stay on if you want to listen to Section 3 and Section 4. Videos?
Oh, that was John Green in a crash course.
No, Back in Time Videos it is. And this is Back in Time Videos, Chapter 6, Section 3. The war moves west and south.
Again, most Native Americans joined with the British troops because they were scared of them. Many British commanders attacked and raided Native American camps. So basically, the Native Americans joined in again with the war, just like the French and Indian War. The Native Americans chose a side and then fought with the other that they weren't as scared with. For example, most of the Native Americans joined with the British because the British seemed more of a threat, whereas the Americans didn't seem as much as a threat because they didn't have as much supplies, weapons, and tools as the British. Now, the bottom right-hand corner picture is a picture of what usual Native American warriors would look like, and the bottom left-hand corner is what a Native American chief would look like. The chief, as you can see, has the headdress with feathers, and the Native American warriors have, I would call those towels covering some parts, and then they have spears and they have feathers, and most of the things that the Native Americans wore would represent their rank or their position in the Native American camp.
And this is a little picture of what the actual battle, or that the first major battle that the Patriots won looks like. Right?
Yeah.
Patrick?
Yes, correct.
Yes, okay. Just kidding, this is what the actual battle just looked like.
This is an image of the Battle of Kaskaskia.
Kaskaskia?
Kaskaskia.
There we go.
Okay. Those are soldiers that had to trudge through the snow and ice cold water to get to Illinois. So this battle was led by George Rogers Clark, a lieutenant colonel in the Virginia militia. He set out in 1778 of July with 175 soldiers, and he marched about 120 miles, and the British took to take the British fort of
Kasasaki.
Kasasaki,
okay?
all right, in Illinois. They captured the British fort of
Kaskaskia.
Yes, in the province of
Vincent's.
Vincent's. Okay, Vincent's. And they took the fort from the British, and that was probably the most successful attack that the Americans did on the British.
John Paul Jones was a very important American admiral during this time. He was the admiral of the ship the Bonhomme Richard. Okay, he raided British trading posts, and he stole lots of stuff from those trading posts, which he could then use to help the colonists during their time of need. He was an admiral for 2 years, but then his ship, the Bonhomme Richard, was sunk by the British ship Serapis. After his ship was sunk, he was quoted by saying these words, "I have not yet begun to fight."
The British commander of the Serapis asked as the
Bonhomme Richard.
Yes, was pretty much completely destroyed. The British commander asked, "Do you surrender, sir?" And he said those words when his ship was just not good looking at all.
The top picture up here is a picture of the Bonhomme Richard when it was fully functioning as a ship, and the bottom picture is after it met the Serapis. So
doesn't look like happy days for
you can obviously see
Jones.
the difference between the good, healthy ship and then Serapis ship. So now Padraig is going to talk about British victories.
Okay, so on your left is General Charles
Cornwallis.
Cornwallis. This, all right, so that's General Cornwallis, and then to your right is General Henry Clinton. Okay, so General Henry Clinton sent 3,500 British troops from New York to take Savannah, Georgia. Now, the British occupied the coastal city and overran most of the state. In early 1780, Clinton himself headed south with a large army to blockade the port of Charlestown, South Carolina. Now, General Cornwallis was in command of the British forces towards the southern part of the colonies. Now, he won a lot of victories, but found that he could not control the area that he had conquered. So he and his troops faced a new kind of warfare, which the British were not used to. So in the South were a lot of trees. Okay, so a new kind of warfare, which is what I just said, and it was guerrilla warfare. Now, the British thought of guerrilla warfare as the most uncivilized thing.
The definition of guerrilla warfare is uncivilized fighting. So as we see, the British were right because it was uncivilized.
Now, the British just said it was technically uncivilized because, well, they were being sore losers and they were losing most of their battles because of guerrilla warfare. Now, the definition of guerrilla warfare is pretty much soldiers not fighting with the rules of war for England. Now, the rules of war was this big, long text thing that said what you could and couldn't do in a battle. So guerrilla warfare was pretty much what the Patriots did is they would hide in trees as the British soldiers were marching along a path, and the Patriots would shoot at the British soldiers. Now the British soldiers were not ready, so it was against the rules of war because apparently you have to get ready in lines and attack like that. Now General Cornwallis was completely just utterly
And
confused
dumbfounded.
about what the heck this was. Now, Francis Marion opened out of the swamps of eastern South Carolina, known as the Swamp Fox. Marion was a very successful guerrilla leader, and one British colonel grumbled that the devil himself cannot catch Marion.
And this is the exact definition of guerrilla warfare. It is two guerrillas having a lightsaber fight.
I'm pretty sure that's not what happened, but we'll let it go anyways. Okay, so as I was saying, Francis Marion was a huge, just a successful leader. Now, guerrilla warfare also pretty much overall caught the British off guard. Now, the British didn't really know how to use guerrilla warfare, so they asked the Native Americans, because Native Americans fighting in trees and whatever, they kind of asked them to help them teach. But it just didn't work. They were just still getting destroyed, the British, from guerrilla warfare. Alright, now we're going to talk about British victories. Now, to your right is Nathaniel
So speak life to the deadest darkest night. Speak life when the sun won't shine and you don't know why.
Really?
Yes, really.
Oh, okay. Whatever. Now, to your right is Nathaniel Greene. Now, to your left is Francis Marion. Now, Nathaniel Greene was replaced as Horatio Gates as a... Oh, my God. Wow.
Back to what you were saying.
Oh, my God. This is just... I hope you guys are laughing right now, because if you're not, Tyler's probably thinking, I don't know what does. Okay. Back to what I was saying. Nathaniel Greene was replaced as Horatio Gates as the commander of the Continental Forces in the South.
What?
Ah! Okay.
Sorry about the interruption.
Yeah. Again, this is the third time in a row. Now, General Horatio Gates was an awful general who always lost battles and just was awful. And he kept on losing battles and risking Patriots' lives. So, Nathaniel Greene took his place. Now, to your left is Francis Marion. Now, Francis Marion was, as I said, the guerrilla leader of the Continental Army. Now we're going to get right into the smack middle of Patriot victories. Now, at Kings Mountain, a British officer and more than 1,000 loyalists defended a fort there. Now, the Patriots, being the Patriots, just decided to go out there and whoop their butts. So, the Patriots forced the British to retreat after an attack. The British brought new support for independence from Southerners. They wanted to see an end to the war that was destroying their homes and farms.
Both of these people were involved in this war, and they worked together. It was a very good mixture.
Bonding between them. Now, back to what I was saying. So the the British loss at Kings Mountain was huge to Patriot and colonist Southerners. So the Southerners thought, okay, let's go to war, because they just kicked out the British from running into our houses and farms and taking our food. Nathaniel Greene forced General Cornwallis out of the South and trapped him at what we know now as Yorktown. Now, the Yorktown was the very last battle after the Battle of Cowpens, which General Daniel Morgan defeated the British. Now, Yorktown was the very last battle, and it was a huge, decisive battle.
Yorktown is going to be talked about in the next section, but this is the end of Section 3. As I said, this is the end of Section 3. If you just want to watch Section 3 or up to Section 3, you can click out of the video. If you want to continue watching, stay on. This is Back in Time Videos with Chapter 6, Section 3.
Thank you for watching.
What we're going to be talking about is the plans for the Battle of Yorktown. The Battle of Yorktown was the last battle of the American Revolution, and it was a very significant one. I'm going to pass the stage over to Padre to talk about this battle.
Okay. Thank you guys once again for watching the videos, and this is the Battle of Yorktown. Okay, this is the very last battle. So now, we have 4 commanders in charge of the Battle of Yorktown. Now there was Lafayette, Steuben, Rochambeau, and Saint Simon. Now, that was on the British main lines surrounding Yorktown. Now, across the James River was Chalcy, who was also French, and he was holding off just a small defensive line. Now, the French Navy was holding off the British Navy from sending reinforcements or possibly coming back to pick up Cornwallis. Cornwallis was entrenched himself in Yorktown, the small little town. Now, if you look towards the other island, that was not Yorktown. That was not a major battle where the black is coming up. That was not a huge battle. That was just the colonists holding them off. Now, if you look towards Cornwallis, where the scuttled British ships are, that is where the main battle was. Now, the French Navy and the French Army played a ginormous role in the Battle of Yorktown. The French Navy held off tons of British ships from picking up Cornwallis. Now, Rochambeau and Lafayette were both French, and they both came to help George Washington. Now, George Washington did not actually take part in the actual battle. He wasn't leading anyone, but we know that he made the strategy and he made the actual plans with Lafayette, Steuben, Rochambeau, and Saint Simon. Okay, so now if you look down towards Washington's headquarters and Rochambeau's headquarters, they are very close together, so they can make a lot of plans. Now, Lafayette, Rochambeau, and Saint Simon were all French. Now, Steuben was Prussian, and Chalcy was French. Now, the British, you can see, do not have any headquarters whatsoever. That is because the British got pushed so far back from their original headquarters into the James River. Okay, now you will realize if you look at the key that blue is American, purple is French, and red is British. Now you may be thinking, why is Lafayette French and controlling American troops, and why is Steuben Prussian, and why is he controlling American troops, and why is Chalcy French and commanded French and American? George Washington trusted these foreigners so much that he gave command of foreign generals. Now, that is what the battlefield looked like. We are now going to move on to all of the plans of the Siege of Yorktown.
And so now I'm going to talk about the plans of Yorktown. You may notice that the circled areas are where the Americans were located. Now, at the bottom of the map, there's Maryland, Virginia, Pennsylvania, light infantry, New York, Rhode Island, New Jersey, Virginia, and then the militias. So this is where the main colony stayed, down in the bottom. Then, you notice up top, there's one little American troop next to French troops. This was a little troop that was meant to backstab the British if the Americans couldn't do their damage. So the one in the back with the French was supposed to just be there for support. Now, the boxed areas are where the French are. The French went to the left, and they had the 2 little troops there for support in the back. They did this formation because the British had no escape route. They either ran into the Americans, the French, or the river. So the British were kind of trapped. Now, the triangularized boxes
Pretty sure that's how you say it.
Yeah, it's triangularized places are the British soldiers. Notice how the British soldiers are somewhat spread out. They also have men up near the French and the American troops that are set up to backstab the British. They're there to stop them from backstabbing. But it's a 3-on-1, and it didn't really work out so well. This didn't really work out so well because the British did not survive up at that top point, and the American and the French both came down and they ambushed the back of the British, while the French on the left and the Americans on the bottom kept them occupied. So so they didn't really end up well for the British. The British actually lost this battle. This was the last battle. This is how the Americans won the war. The Americans won the war because of an ambush. The ambush of Yorktown. So this was the plan of Yorktown. However, Washington and Lafayette's relationship did not end here. Here is an image of Washington and Lafayette riding their horses back home from the battle. They left their troops to go home with the general Washington assigned, and they just came out and they talked to each other. They formed a very strong relationship, and this relationship lasted a very long time. After the Battle of Yorktown, when the Americans had become free, they needed someone to rule over their country. So they formed their form of government, but then they needed someone as a ruler. They assigned George Washington. George Washington did not want to be a ruler. He wanted to be a president. A president is one who is elected, not just chosen due to birth. So then they had a vote. George Washington won again. That proved that he was supposed to be the president of America. And then this is a picture of George Washington in their form of the White House, and this is him when he was elected as president. So thank you for watching our video. Please leave any comments, questions, concerns, recommendations in the feedback section of our website.
Thank you guys for watching, and please leave comments and recommendations. We won't be so picky about them. We'll listen to all of them. And this is History Back in Time signing out.